Before we begin this new episode, I need your help answering a question that has been plaguing my gaming life for the best part of 30 years. Can somebody please tell me what kind of creature is that? I've heard some people say that he's a frog, others have said that he's a lizard. I've personally always thought that he's some kind of alien. I mean, look, he's got no arms. Please, help. Any input would be greatly appreciated. We will now return to our scheduled episode. Hello everyone, welcome to the re-review. I'm Brian from UK Gaming Network, also known as UKGN Zoidberg. In this series I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era, which, as luck would have it, happened to be the time that I was a writer for various magazines such as GamesX, PlayStation Zone and Amiga Action. People's opinions can change over time, and I'm here to see whether or not I agree with my 17-year-old self, or whether I got it completely wrong first time around. In this episode, I'm going to be taking a fresh look at Nebulus 2 Pogo-a-gogo from developer Infernal Byte Systems and published by 21st Century Entertainment in 1991. I've been playing games for over 40 years, and it's only a few times where I've been so blown away by a game that it's burned into my memory. Whether it was standing in awe upon seeing Gran Turismo on the PlayStation for the first time, or forcing my friends to watch the intro to Another World over and over again, these are the moments that define us as gamers. Nebulus on the Spectrum was one such moment for me. While bearing all the hallmarks of a traditional platformer, Nebulus stood out by taking place on towers that would rotate as you climbed them. It was a fantastic optical illusion, and it still looks great today. But on a 48K Spectrum in 1987 it was nothing short of astonishing. The game was designed and programmed by John Phillips and would go on to win the award for Best Original Game at the 1987 Golden Joysticks. Some players will know it better as Tower Toppler, which it was called in the US, or when it was eventually remade as Castellian on the Game Boy. Although Phillips wouldn't make any more original games, he would go on to work for the Bitmap Brothers on the PlayStation version of Speedball 2100, and Sensible Software, creating mobile versions of Cannon Fodder and Sensible Soccer. Nebulus was one of many fantastic games produced in the 8-bit era by Hewson Consultants. Founded in 1981 by Andrew Hewson, they would quickly become a household name with gamers thanks to quality titles such as Exelon, Iridium, Synapse, Cybernoid and Gribbly's Day Out. The final game published under the Hewson name was Zarathustra for the Amiga in 1991. And following this, many of the management team, including Hewson himself, would go on to form 21st Century Entertainment. For one of their first games, the new publisher would opt for a sequel to Nebulus. Only this time it would be the work of a little-known German studio, Infernal Byte Systems, who had just finished making Master Blazer for Lucasfilm Games. Nebulus 2 Pogo-a-gogo, I still don't like that subtitle, was released almost without any fanfare, and kept the same basic gameplay as the original, improved the graphics, and added a few new features. Infernal Byte Systems would go on to develop the colourful platformer Marvin's Marvellous Adventure in 1994, as well as the Chips Challenge-inspired puzzler Demo's Quest. 21st Century themselves would become more well known for kicking off the Amiga's pinball revolution with Pinball Dreams, developed by a little-known studio called DICE, and I'll talk about them in a future episode. Hewson's legacy continues today thanks to indie publisher Huey Games, founded by Andrew's son Rob, who we have been lucky enough to meet on a couple of occasions at various shows, including Play Expo and EGX. Let's go back to 1991 though, and check out my original review to see what I thought about Nebulus 2 when I first played it. Nebulus 2 graced the cover of issue 15 of GamesX in August 1991, and my two-page review was on pages 16 and 17. This was the issue where I took charge of the game's dedicated Commodore 64 and Spectrum pages, and the only other Amiga game reviewed in the issue was Battle Chess 2 from Interplay. Nebulus 2 was our game of the week with a score of 5 X's out of 5 and an X-rated stamp. Presentation, lastability and gameplay were all scored 18 out of 20. I was impressed with the sheer amount of enemies, platforms and items that the game could have on screen at any time and still stay smooth. Sound effects were also good, lending the game a nice atmosphere, although I wasn't overly keen on the music. The only thing that I didn't like about the original game was its overly fiddly controls, and I was pleased to report that that wasn't the case here. Gameplay is easier to handle with the new and improved control method, but I don't think the game will be easy to complete. I can guarantee that you will have your work cut out. Now it's time for the playtest to see if I still feel the same. I think it's hard to disagree that this is still a really good looking game, even all these years later. The way the tower rotates is just as impressive as it always was. I should probably point out that simply getting to play this game in 2023 is actually quite a tricky thing. It doesn't work properly on the A500 Mini or any emulators. There's some strange graphical glitches where you can't see the doors, so you actually have to know where they are to be able to progress in the game. Another interesting little gameplay quirk that they added to this over the original is that you get multiple doors on certain levels. Whereas in the original, doors were always directly opposite each other on the tower. You can now get doors where you will go in different ways depending on which way you're facing when you enter them. So if I was to enter this door while facing to the right, I'll appear directly above a trap. Whereas if I go through the door facing left, I will drop down next to the lift that I need to go up. Yeah, as an opening level for a game, this is way too hard in my opinion. It's even for somebody who's played the original game, this is way too challenging. And I'd hate to think what somebody who was completely new to the series found this to be like. Power-ups are all quite interesting, and in order to activate them, you need to press down, and that brings up which ones you've currently picked up. So if I select the all-seeing eye, for instance, this will allow you to go up the tower and roll around it, just to have a look at what traps are coming up, before the game will then return you back to where you were after a short time. And this power-up allows you to travel between these 2 points with the arrow on them. So after completing the level, you are then treated to a bonus stage between levels. And this will allow you to collect some additional time for the next stage. So now this is new for Nebulus 2. This is towers where you must make your way from the top to the bottom. And as you can see, the platforms have all got like a little bit of green to them, and that's, you basically clean them by walking over them. And the idea being that you are attempting to clean 80% of the tower. Oops. And it's really bizarre that when you die, you you float upwards and off into space rather than falling into the water. The controls on Nebulus 2 are actually better than than they were on the original game. On the original game, you jumped by pressing the fire button whilst moving, whereas in this one you actually jump by pushing up on the joystick, which makes a lot more sense. Now, one of the other places that I tried to play this game for the purposes of this re-review was on Antstream, which I don't know whether you know Antstream. It's a great little retro game service. Yeah, when I attempted to play this game on Antstream, the controls had not been configured correctly, so the rather important ability to push down on the joystick was completely absent on there for some reason, and it rendered this level completely impossible. Oh no! Of course there's a hand that comes up out of the water to get you. Hey, I've reached the bottom. This is easily my least favourite of the bonus stages. I mean, once again, graphically it's very nice, but the actual stage itself is just very, very annoying. I'd say the difficulty is definitely a problem with this game. Oh, no way. It's definitely one of the better looking platform games on the Amiga. I don't think you'll find anybody that will disagree with me on that one. It's incredibly colourful. The rotating tower still looks great. It's just a lot of silly design decisions about difficulty and the power-ups and things stop it from being as good as the first game. It's full of nice little touches. I mean, for instance, for no reason other than one of fun, you can actually press the P on the keyboard, and that will change the colour of the central character. For no actual, it serves no purpose whatsoever. So I think if I was ever gonna sit down and specifically try to play a game of Nebulus, I would probably just play the original. I'm glad that the sequel exists. But I think that there's just too many incidental flaws to make it fully recommended. But I think it's time that we move on to the summary. The formula for making a good video game sequel isn't a complicated one. You keep everything that worked in the original, take out anything that didn't, and then sprinkle in a few new features to spice up the gameplay. Nebulus 2 ticks all of these boxes with ease, although it goes a little bit too far with that last one. All the new power-ups add very little to the game, and beyond trying each one once to see what they did, I never really used them again, and never really felt that I needed to. It's also a punishingly difficult game. There's no introduction period for new players, it just dumps you into the first level and expects you to cope. With the original game being 5 years old at the point that this came out, I suspect that there would be a lot of players out there who had never even heard of the original, never mind played it. I suspect that this was just way too hard for first-time players, and many would never see any of the later levels. All of these issues are particularly frustrating, as the actual core gameplay is still great. Navigating the towers and solving the puzzles is just as much fun as it ever was, and the towers where you start at the top and have to work your way to the bottom add an interesting new dimension to the experience. Level codes after each tower would have been nice though, as having to start at the beginning every time is a little bit unfair. Here's the Super League for puzzle platform games on the Amiga, and as you can see, Nebulus 2 sits comfortably in the middle, but also behind the original, which is still the better game overall. As far as scoring it goes, this is definitely not a 5-star experience, and I'd probably end up giving it 7 out of 10 if I was reviewing it today. Thank you for watching this episode of the re-review. I hope you enjoyed it. All opinions expressed in this video are entirely mine and not those of the UK Gaming Network team. Did you play Nebulus 2 back in the day? If so, I'd love to hear what you thought about it in the comments. I'm going to be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode of the re-review, and if you stick around to the end of this one, there'll be a little musical hint of what I'm going to be playing. In the meantime, you can look me up on Twitter at UKGNZoidberg and tell me what kind of creature you think Pogo is. Don't forget that one. If you like this video, then don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to support what we do, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Until next time, happy retro gaming. See you all soon.